Part 26. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 257. You may encounter. Kaylan nodded, but judging from the last experience, these biological weapons have obviously not been developed yet, and most of the experimental records on the stone tablets ended in failure. Indeed, the monster that the pilot turned into last time is a bit tricky, but it is still too weak compared to the invulnerable ghost thing like the Seed of Corrosion Hound. Agreed, the only thing we need to be careful about is Kaylan. The eyeball you mentioned, I'm afraid it's not easy to deal with. But judging from the exploration records of the previous hunting groups, the maximum depth they have reached is 440 meters. In other words, it is safe within at least 500 meters. Kaylan said, suddenly shaking his head. That's not right. They found biological tissues at 270 meters away. These tissues may be the ones sealed in the A-087 ruins. You still have to go down and take a look in person. Kaylan turned to look at Layton. Where are the equipment you brought this time? It's all in the box, Layton said, dragging out a coffin-like black metal box from the table and opening the lid with a snap. Inside the box is a set of equipment similar to a powered exoskeleton. There are sharp hooks operated by a hydraulic system at the ends of the arms and the front ends of the feet. A total of 6 are installed on the back, waist, and calves. Mini rocket thruster. The wind speed at the depth of 300 meters in the sinkhole is about 20 meters per second. If you want to maintain balance, you have to increase the number of suspension cables to at least 8. But it is still very dangerous. I simply gave up the steel cable suspension. The descent method was changed to rock climbing equipment, Layton explained to the crowd. In order to deal with electromagnetic interference deep in the sinkhole, this exoskeleton adopts 2 control methods, chip control and mechanical control. All key components are purely mechanical structures. The freezing point of the filling fluid in the transmission hydraulic rod is -160 degrees. Although the overall design is relatively retro, the leather is solid and reliable, Layton said, lifting the powered exoskeleton out of the box. The hooks on both hands and feet are all made of nano alloy. Each hook is equivalent to 5 sharp small ice picks, which can easily cut into the ice and is equipped with a heating device. To ensure that it will not be unable to be pulled out due to freezing, as for these 6 rocket thrusters, they are the last resort. Last resort? How safe? Hound asked casually. The power of the thruster is enough to allow you to maintain a hovering state in the level 9 gale. In this state, the pre-filled fuel can last for 30 minutes. If you want to choose to escape from the ruins, you only need to adjust the injection angle. Open the output valve to the maximum and accelerate from 0, it will only take 3.5 seconds to fly from a depth of 500 meters to the top of the sinkhole, Layton said, patting his chest. You idiot, you obviously only considered yourself when designing the equipment, the Hound suddenly cursed. With this powerful propeller, the G-force exerted on a person when accelerating is enough to crush a person's internal organs. Among the few of us, I think only you and Asano Akira can withstand this load, and my old bones can't bear it anyway. Hey, old dog, you can't scold me this time. In order to deal with this problem, I have already thought of a way. Layton chuckled and pulled out another thick package from the mezzanine of the box. The package was opened, and inside it is an exquisitely crafted piece of cold-proof clothing. Bought from the military, it is a tactical anti-German suit specially designed for special tasks in extremely cold areas. It solves 3 problems of protection, pressure reduction, and cold resistance at once, but the price is a little expensive. It seems that you finally have some brains. It's really rare. The Hound unceremoniously picked up the anti-German suit, looked it over before and after, and suddenly said, I take it back, you idiot has been tricked again once. This dress is second-hand, didn't you notice the obvious signs of wear on the lining? There's no way. Layton scratched the back of his head. The production of this thing is very small, and it's not one size fits all. It would be good to get a few second-hand goods of suitable sizes. Anyway, the actual effect will not be compromised, so we will make do with it. Get dressed. Although the hound's words were full of disgust, in the blink of an eye, he had already put on the anti-gravity suit. He pulled the air pressure valve at the cuffs, and the originally loose clothes tightened tightly, wrapping the hound. Body of. It looks okay, the thermal insulation effect is good, the hound nodded, and then with the help of Leighton, he put the power exoskeleton on the outside of the anti-gravity suit. We have got the new equipment, we have to try it first. Give it a try. Well, if we continue to stay up there, we won't be able to analyze anything more. Kaylan nodded and agreed. The first time you go down, let's set a target of 50 meters deep. 50 meters? Isn't that too conservative? Leighton asked. Those stone monuments won't appear until a depth of 150 meters. If you go down only 50 meters, you won't be able to see anything. Our primary target is not those stone monuments, Kaylan replied. First of all, we have to figure out the range of the spiritual attack and descend rashly. In case the things in the sinkhole suddenly attack us, even if I can hear those, the sound is too late to remind you. If possible, I even plan to dig down 1 meter at a time. Kaylan is right, being cautious is not a bad thing. Those who die the fastest are the reckless ones, Hound said. He had already put on the exoskeleton. When the palm was opened and closed, the transmission lock was connected with the hook on the arm. There was a squeaking sound of metal friction. Leighton prepared a total of 6 sets of such equipment. Each set was tailor-made according to their body shape, so there was no uncomfortable feeling after wearing it. Kaylan even felt the 5 ice pick-like hooks as freely as an extension of his own arm. The 6 people returned to the edge of the sinkhole again, but before they could go down, Danner, the leader of the Polaris hunting group, ran over quickly. What's going on with you? Are you planning to go down into the sinkhole yourself? Danner asked with surprise as he looked at the equipment on Kaylan and the others. The Hound said, What's wrong? Aren't we here just to explore this ruins? But you already know, half of the people who go down will go crazy. You still want to take this risk yourself? I thought you would send hunters. Dana said in shock. We are the hunters of the God hunting group. He, young Master Kaylan, too. Danner pointed at the heavily armed Kaylan and asked, You want to go down too? Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 258. Kaylan did not speak, but responded directly with practical actions. He checked his equipment one last time, then walked to the edge of the cliff, faced the bottomless sinkhole, and jumped down. Not only does he want to go down, but his position is also the most important vanguard among the entire team. The rocket thrusters on his back and legs simultaneously ejected fiery tail flames, helping Kaylan adjust his posture in the air and fly towards the pit wall on one side. With a pop sound, the nano-alloy hook claws at the ends of the limbs popped out at the same time, cutting into the hard ice without any hindrance. Then, the mechanism at the front of the hook claw was triggered, and each hook claw unfolded. 4 barbs with thorns were pulled out, and with a heart-wrenching friction sound, 20 ravines of different depths were plowed out on the wall of the pit. Ian's position finally stabilized at a depth of 35 meters, his entire body was firmly attached to the ice on the surface of the pit wall, just like an earth creature called a gecko. Kaylan looked around and said on the team channel using a throat microphone, the descent depth is 35.4 meters. It's safe. No trace of the siren has been found yet. The communication is completed. The word siren comes from a kind of siren in ancient Greek mythology that can confuse humans with its songs. Here, it is used to refer to the alpha language that only Kaylan can hear, and the words hidden in it. Mental attack. Looking down from Ian's position, one can also see the hunters who are suspended by steel cables for mining operations deeper. They hold the adjustment lock at the end of the steel cable with one hand and hold the small laser on their shoulders with the other. Cutting machine, their feet were pedaling on the cutting frame that was driven into the ice. The strong wind flowing in the sinkhole kept beating on these people, making hunting sounds. From time to time, some chopped ice ballast would come from they fell in front of them and fell into the dark abyss. Soon, the hounds and others also jumped down from above. They used their hooks to hang themselves about 20 meters deep, forming a fan-shaped advance formation with Ian's position as the apex. To be honest, I have used the fan-shaped push formation many times when encircling and suppressing indigenous creatures, but this is really the first time on the vertical plane the hound's voice sounded in the team channel. Anyway, our equipment has three-dimensional maneuverability. There is not much difference between vertical and water surfaces. Kaylan said, each unit should confirm its own status. If there is no problem, I will continue to descend. Number 2, Hound, no problem. Number 3, Akira Asano, no problem. Everyone responded one by one according to the serial number of the preset position. After confirming, Kaylan pulled out the hooks of his right hand and right foot, and reached down with the entire right half of his body. After finding a new foothold, he moved the hooks inserted into the ice, then pull out the hooks of your left hand and left foot, and repeat the process. Compared with the leapfrog fall, this rock climbing like descent is much slower, but it is more stable and does not consume precious fuel in the rocket thruster. Anyway, the goal set for the first exploration operation was 50 meters deep. Even if he climbed like this for half an hour, Ian's physical strength was fully capable. But just when Kaylan was about to continue climbing down, there was a sudden violent explosion above his head. Suddenly, a large amount of snow and ice rolled down from above. Damn it! What's going on? What happened up there? The hound shouted loudly. He was hit by a piece of ice the size of a wash basin while climbing, and his exoskeleton on one side was seriously damaged. The rocket thrusters on the back and waist fell down together with the brackets. Fortunately, the hook on the other hand was inserted deep enough, so that the hound could hang on the wall of the pit and did not fall into the abyss. Akira Asano. Leighton. Go help the old dog, Kaylan shouted in the wheat, don't fly up now. In addition to the explosion, I also heard gunshots. I heard it too. Damn it, it was the gunshots of modified Type 01 assault rifles and Mozambique shotguns, as well as some crude semi-automatic weapons. Could it be the exiles? Leighton whispered. Kaylan immediately switched to the communication channel of the Grease and asked, Captain, what is the situation above the sinkhole now? The captain of the Grease is a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was once the first mate of a heavy assault ship in the Second Fleet. After retiring, he was hired by the Soma Consortium. He was transferred to this Phantom not long ago. Aboard a high-speed airship. As a retired soldier who has experienced many battles, the captain's reaction was very calm. The relic hunters above the sinkhole were attacked. The attackers were a convoy of 11 unidentified modified vehicles, coming from the southwest. Coming from the direction, we are still 500 meters away from the temporary observation station and hunter camp. Rocket launchers and individual missiles are being used to carry out long-range attacks on the camp. Based on the current speed of the convoy, it is expected to rush into the camp in 30 seconds. Didn't the early warning radar on the ship detect this group of attackers? Kaylan couldn't help but ask. There should be a stealth device in the convoy that can block radar detection, so it was not discovered in advance, the captain replied. Can the identity of the attacker be inferred from the characteristics of these vehicles? The attackers should be the exiles in the wilderness, but it is impossible to determine which force they are. The captain paused and said, the Polaris hunting group in the camp below sent a signal for help to our ship. Do you want to launch fire, assistance? Assistance is allowed, but pay attention to the attack range and minimize accidental damage. In addition, ship-based drones will be sent to cover our return. Received. Prepare for fire support. Attack target, Exile convoy. There is a screen installed in Ian's goggles that is directly connected to the small command system. From this screen, he can clearly see the picture captured by the drone, only the rear port side and the front starboard side of the grease can be seen. Flames more than 10 meters long were sprayed out from both sides at the same time, and the entire airship slowly moved horizontally. The weapon bays on the side facing the attacker opened one after another, and 4 rapid-fire railguns and 2 honeycomb missile launchers poked out of it. This is the strongest firepower that a civilian airship can carry. Although this firepower can scratch the itch in front of a battleship, it is more than enough to deal with the Exile's convoy. From the footage of another drone, Kaylan finally saw the true identity of the attackers. They were 11 off-road vehicles that had been modified like tanks, with a large number of rusty studs welded to the front of the vehicles. 3 pairs of wheels with a diameter of 2 meters are wrapped with thick metal tracks, and the rear compartment is filled with a variety of long-range weapons. This is indeed the style of the Exiles, but even among the Exiles, this fleet can definitely be regarded as luxuriously armed. Even if many large settlements spend all their money, they still cannot get together one such armored vehicle. Let alone 11 cars. Kaylan shared the drone footage with the rest of the team, and Hound immediately cursed, "Damn it, are these bastards crazy?" "No, they are not crazy, they are here to rob the stone tablet." Kaylan suddenly thought of a possibility and couldn't help but shudder. Stone tablet? What's the use of grabbing this thing? Do they think people from the Institute will spend a lot of money to buy this thing from a group of exiles? They robbed this not for money, but for research. These people are not ordinary exiles, Kaylan said word by word. Research, just because of them. Hound stopped mid-sentence, and after a while, he said with some difficulty, "You mean, these people were sent by that heretical sect?" In addition to Kaylan, the Relic hunter who founded the heretical sect can also read the texts of Alpha civilization. At the Institute, these stone tablets were just alien documents that were difficult to decipher, but when they got into his hands, it became valuable research data. Judging from the heretical sect's research on the seed of corrosion, Kaylan has no doubt that that guy can replicate the biological weapons recorded on these stone tablets again, or even improve them. That man escaped from the Ark a long time ago and has been hiding in an unknown place in the wilderness. These exiles active in the wilderness are the real foundation of the heretical sect. No one knows to what extent the heretical sect has developed among the exiles, but one thing that is certain is that the force they possess is enough to conquer every exile settlement and absorb the population into their own congregation. Although the total population of the exiles is not as large as the humans on the Ark, the sum of so many settlements, large and small, is a number that cannot be underestimated. If these people are all, no, not all, as long as 10 if one of the people is transformed into a biological weapon by a heretical sect, it will be a very terrifying force. They don't even need to rush to attack the Ark. They only need to continuously attack the ruin hunters everywhere and plunder the trophies these hunters unearthed from the ruins. With that person's presence, the heretical sect can digest the loot much faster than the Ark. With the help of Alpha with civilized technology, within a few years, the gap in technological levels between the two sides will be completely overturned. There are only 2 ways to change the situation. The first way is to capture or kill the founder of the heresy sect alive. Without his heresy sect, there is no way to pose any threat to the Ark. The second way is to. It was Kaylan who disclosed his abilities to the top management of Ark, and the two sides launched an arms race similar to the Cold War of the old era. "Fire," the captain's order came from the channel. Hundreds of small guided missiles poured out from the launch nest, dragging white trails and flying towards the exiles' convoy. However, these missiles were far away from the convoy. When there were still almost 100 meters left, they all lost their aim one after another. Some fell to the ground and exploded, some twisted and flew into the distance as if they were drunk, and the most outrageous one, he changed the angle and crashed directly into a temporary barracks set up by the Polaris hunting group. Gan. These armored vehicles also have anti-guidance jamming devices. Their appearance is just camouflage, and the equipment carried on these vehicles is no less than that of regular troops in the field. Seeing this scene, Layton said anxiously, "No, use missiles and rail cannons to blast him. I don't believe they even have shield generators on board." A faint blue stream of light fell from the sky and headed straight for the modified car at the front of the convoy. Just when the blue stream of light was about to come into contact with the vehicle, a brilliant light shield suddenly lit up directly in front of the car. The Hound immediately scolded, "Layton, you are a humming crow's mouth. Say less next time." Boom. The electromagnetic bullet as thick as an arm hit the energy shield hard, and nearly 2/3 of the projectile was vaporized in the blink of an eye, while the remaining 1/3 deviated from the predetermined trajectory and penetrated right through into the ground. Although the modified car failed to be directly destroyed, the huge kinetic energy contained in the projectile still lifted the car instantly and hit another car behind the convoy. The two vehicles that collided together suddenly had a more violent explosion. The detonating vehicle-borne ammunition affected most of the convoy. In the continuous explosion, nearly half of the modified vehicles were destroyed. It turned into a blazing fireball, and the vehicle behind it had to step on the brakes. "Good fight," the Hound shouted, but in an instant, he suddenly felt something bad. Did you hear anything, a rumbling sound?" "Explosion," Layton asked on the communication channel. "No. It's not an explosion, it's the sound of something collapsing, from far to near." Kaylan also heard it, and he suddenly shuddered. "No, it's an avalanche." Firefight and explosion. The resulting vibrations triggered an avalanche. Before he finished speaking, countless cracks appeared on the ice in front of them in an instant. The next second, the ice they were clinging to had shattered. "What the hum? Run! Use the thrusters to fly out," Layton yelled, and with a strong tug of the robotic arm, he lifted the damaged Hound in his hands and started the rocket thrusters behind him, but before he could wait, he adjusted the angle, and a large heavy object, which was unknown as ice or broken rock, hit him solidly, pushing the two of them into the abyss. "Layton! Old dog," Kaylan turned around and shouted, but soon, he also felt as if someone had punched him hard on his back. The push that kept him suspended in mid-air suddenly disappeared, and his whole body he lost his balance in an instant and fell towards the depths of the sinkhole. During the fall, Kaylan managed to raise his head and saw majestic snow waves sweeping through the broken glacier like a tsunami. They carried the broken rocks and rushed to the edge of the sinkhole, and then rolled down with a crash. Whether Kaylan and others are still the hunters working on the wall of the pit. They have no way to avoid it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 259. Fly down, Kaylan roared at the top of his lungs. Going upwards and hitting an avalanche head-on will definitely lead to death. Only by accelerating downward and rushing out of the avalanche's coverage area before being swallowed by the avalanche can you gain a chance of survival. Kaylan curled up into a ball in the air with difficulty, bent his knees as much as possible, and aimed the two remaining rocket thrusters directly above his legs. The huge white wave rolling down the cliff was less than 20 meters away from him. Apart from the loud rumbling, he couldn't even hear any other sounds, and the biting coldness hit his face. With terrifying energy falling from the sky, Kaylan could definitely smell the suffocating breath of death. Once caught up by the avalanche, he would be crushed to pieces in an instant. Kaylan felt like he was in a race against death. The torrent of ice and snow was chasing him, and he could only plunge headlong into the bottomless abyss below. The surrounding light was gradually dimming, and Kaylan felt as if he was melting into the shadows. Even the loud noise from the avalanche above gradually became distant. The chill was gradually disappearing, and a strange warm current flowed along his back, crawled to his limbs, and he could clearly feel the touch from every inch of his skin, but he lost control of his body. He wanted to reach out a hand to touch his face, but I found that there seemed to be something heavy and soft pressed on my arm, and I couldn't move at all. Endless sleepiness was welling up, and his eyelids were almost completely closed, leaving only a gap where he was still making the final struggle. Kaylan knew that he could never sleep at this time, but he even bit his tongue like this. Even simple actions are impossible. You're dead. Even if you weren't buried alive by the avalanche, if you fell into the bottom of the pit like this, you would still be thrown to death. His consciousness became more and more blurred, and the darkness in front of him gradually turned into chaos. However, a point of light suddenly lit up in the chaos. Light. Kaylan was stunned for a moment. He felt that he was regaining control of his body, but he was shocked to find that he seemed to be no longer in the sinkhole. He opened his eyes forcefully, and the spot of light directly above him continued to expand, gradually spreading to his entire field of vision. It was a lamp mounted on the ceiling, emitting a soft and bright light. The heavy and soft thing Kaylan felt just now was not an illusion. It was a thick quilt, and the fibers of the fabric exuded a unique fragrance of detergent. Where is this place? Kaylan was shocked. She was clearly lying on the same bed. Is this on the Ark, or somewhere else? Kaylan raised his head and found a familiar figure sitting on the sofa nearby. Zofia. Are you awake? Zofia saw Kaylan struggling to get up, so she quickly walked to the bed and helped Kaylan up. What's going on? Why am I here? Kaylan rubbed his forehead. Didn't I fall into a deep pit? That was 4 days ago. Zofia glanced at him and said softly, when the rescue team found you deep in the sinkhole, you were hanging on the wall of the sinkhole and had lost consciousness. You have been sleeping in the medical cabin for 3 days, and you were just transferred to this general ward yesterday. The doctor said that your injuries have basically recovered and you will wake up today. I happened to be free today, so I came here. An avalanche of that magnitude, I hung on the wall of the pit, and I didn't die. Kaylan asked dubiously, how is this possible? But you are still alive and well now, aren't you? Zofia stood up. Are you hungry? What do you want to eat? Your current physical condition is quite good. You are not limited to liquid food, you can also eat solid food. Wait a minute, what about Hound, Leighton, and the others? Have they been rescued? What? Zofia frowned. What are you talking about? I said, do you have any news about the other people in the team? Hound, Leighton, Yvonne, Akira Asano and Jola Jitu. Kaylan repeated it again. For some reason, he suddenly felt something in his heart. A very strange feeling. He always felt that these names seemed very strange, although he clearly remembered all the memories related to them. These memories did not seem to belong to him. Who are these people? Zofia was slightly startled and asked. My teammates, they are my teammates, the teammates who went down to the sinkhole with me and encountered an avalanche. Have you forgotten? No, it's impossible, you should have done it when you were on the Pioneer. I know them, and the Leviathan mission you entrusted to me was completed by them and me. Kaylan tried very hard to recall some details, but found that his brain was in chaos at the moment, and he was thinking about everything. Can't get up. Kaylan. Zofia sat down by the bed, stretched out a hand, held his shoulder, and said sternly, although I don't know what you encountered in the ruins, but what I want to tell you, Leviathan, you completed the mission alone, and you were the only one who went down into the bottomless sinkhole this time. You told me before that many of the hunters who came back from the sinkhole went crazy. At that time, you thought that these hunters were mentally attacked by something in the ruins, but have you ever thought that these teammates in your memory might also be hallucinations that you had after being mentally attacked? Hallucination. Kaylan held his breath subconsciously, and a chilling chill quietly crept up his back. Hallucination, how could it be an hallucination? By the way, 5 senior hunters are required to register a consortium-level hunting group. As the team leader, it's impossible for me to pass the document review alone. At that time, you found several other hunters on the internet to register, but you were the only actual member of the hunting group. At that time, I asked you if you wanted to recruit more people. You said that teammates who have not been trained can easily become a drag. I plan to complete the qualification certification task alone and then think of ways to expand the size of the hunting group. Sophia said. I'm alone, what's going on? Leviathan's mission is also carried out by me alone. Yes, Sophia nodded. This is impossible. I clearly remember them. Your memory may be biased. Sophia paused and handed over Ian's cell phone. You can check past mission records yourself. Lan took the phone and hurriedly opened his hunter profile and found the mission record. Before he clicked on it, a series of single missions on the list already stung his eyes deeply. How can this be? Not only the bottomless sinkhole and Leviathan, but also the underwater city and glacier ruins are all single-player missions. In the detailed mission records, all content related to the hounds and the others disappeared, as if they had never existed in the world. This is impossible. By the way, number. He also remembered the hound's communication numbers. Lan quickly entered the hound's number into his mobile phone, and then dialed. However, after a beep, an electronically synthesized female voice came from the receiver. Sorry, the number you dialed is unavailable. Empty number. How could it be an empty number? Even if they died in the ruins, they would only be unable to get through at most. How could it be an empty number? Communication numbers in this era are different from those in the old era. Each number can be used for life and can never be cancelled. Even if the owner of the number dies, disappears, or is exiled to the wilderness, their communication number will be retained. Come down, although these numbers cannot be reached, they cannot be marked as empty numbers. If it is an empty number, it means that this string of numbers has never been used. But Lan just dialed this number not long ago. He tried calling several other people, but without exception, all the numbers were empty. Only one number was answered, that was Lieutenant General Maginot's number. Hello? Lan? Are you awake? I heard that you almost lost your life this time. If I had known, I shouldn't have given you that letter of recommendation. Maginot said, that's it? What are you calling me for? Do you want to know the origins of the exiles who attacked the camp? No, Lan said. He felt that his throat was extremely dry and his voice was a little hoarse. I want to ask you a question. A person? Who? Hunter, no, a man named Nick. He was once a colonel in the field force. He had a bad mouth and a bad temper, but he loved his subordinates very much. He almost mutinied for the pension. In the end, forced to retire. Do you remember such a person? Well, there are not even 1,000 people named Nick in the field force, but maybe 800, but there seems to be no one who has made it to a senior colonel, and according to you, if this guy has caused such a big thing, he will be a general or above. The top management should all know about this guy, but I don't remember such a person at all. Could it be that you made a mistake? I'm not mistaken, his name is Nick. After retiring, he became a relic hunter, codenamed Hound. Do you still remember what happened on Route 34 in the North 9th District? Of course I remember this. The thugs from the heretic sect hijacked a train. Fortunately, you subdued them in time to avoid a disaster. That was also the first time I met you. How could I not remember it? Nick was with me at that time, and he and I paid the thug together, Lan said word by word. What? Weren't you alone at that time? Did you have a companion? But you didn't mention it at all. Maginot's tone was full of doubts, and it didn't sound like he was lying at all. If you want to find a guy named Nick, then I can ask someone to help you ask, but you'd better not have too much hope. No one can tell for soldiers serving in the field. When Maginot said this, he did not continue, but sighed longly. That's a problem. General K-Lan hung up the phone and stared silently at the door opposite the hospital bed. Suddenly, he lifted the quilt covering his legs and stumbled out of bed. Be careful, your injury is not fully healed yet. Seeing this, Zofia quickly hugged K-Ian's waist. Fortunately, K-Ian's weight was not too heavy, so the two of them did not fall to the ground together. What's wrong? If anything happens, just tell me and I'll let someone take care of it. You can rest in peace and recuperate now, okay? Zofia's words contained some reproach. She really didn't understand why after Lan woke up, he seemed like a different person, and he kept mumbling names he had never heard before. If those people are your former teammates, I can send people to find them. Whether they are alive or dead now, they will definitely be able to find clues. I'm going to a place, Lan said stubbornly. I must confirm it with my own eyes, otherwise, I will never believe it. Okay, somewhere, tell me the address and I will drive you there. The place Lan was talking about was Ivan's private clinic in the North 4th District. There was an old saying, you can run away from the monk, but you can't run away from the temple. He didn't believe it. If people disappeared, could even the clinic be able to escape? Disappear together? Half an hour later, Zofia's car stopped at the intersection that Lan was familiar with. North 4th District, number 11 Kangal Street, a familiar location is covered by a completely unfamiliar building. It is a Chinese restaurant called Chinese Kung Fu. A huge neon sign hangs directly above the door. It happens to be during dinner time. There was an endless stream of diners coming and going, and even the tables on the street were full of people. Chinese restaurant? Do you want to eat Chinese food? Zofia, who was sitting in the driver's seat, asked curiously, but Lan had already opened the car door and walked quickly towards the Chinese restaurant. He ignored the protests of the diners in line, the waiters' inquiries and the surprised looks of the dining guests. He walked straight through the lobby, bypassed the display cabinets filled with sample dishes, and pushed away a man who came up to think about it. The restaurant staff who wanted to stop him kicked open the kitchen door. 4 or 5 chefs in white uniforms turned their heads at the same time and looked at the uninvited guest. Lan walked into the kitchen in a daze. He looked around blankly, with a look of almost despair in his eyes. The ceiling of the kitchen was somewhat blackened by oil smoke. The chef's workstation and floor also had obvious signs of wear, and the rusty exhaust fan on the wall. These signs told Lan that this Chinese restaurant was built. It's been several years, and I didn't just move here recently. Sir, may I ask? A chef tried to ask. Your boss, where is your boss? I want to see him. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 260. I just said the chef who stood up. How many years has your restaurant been open here? Lan stared at him, as if he was afraid that the other party would suddenly disappear. 4 years, what happened? Sir, what on earth did you? Before he finished speaking, Lan interrupted him again. Before you, was this place a clinic? It was a clinic opened by a Slav named Ivan Dash. No, no, no. Sir, I think you may have made a mistake. Before my restaurant opened, this was a small commercial bank. It went bankrupt due to poor management, so I was able to buy this land at a good price. Right to use. If you are looking for a clinic, there are several in the next block, the owner of the restaurant said. If possible, I hope you can leave here now. Your behavior has been serious. I know, I'm sorry, Lan said with some frustration. He turned around, his arms hanging weakly by his side, and walked towards the door of the restaurant. He vaguely heard someone behind him scolding him as a psycho. He slowly turned his head, only to see a young girl with blonde hair and blue eyes clumsily using the chopsticks in her hand, trying to pick up a piece of elastic meat ball. She failed once, twice, and the third time, the meatballs rolled off the edge of the soup pot and fell to the floor. For some reason, Kaylan always felt that the meatballs were raw, and the pot of delicious, steaming soup seemed to be boiling with bright red blood. Is there such a dish in Chinese food? Is this a pot of moxiuwang? Kaylan suddenly felt very irritable. He didn't want to think about these details. He just felt that the restaurant seemed to be very noisy, and he didn't want to stay here for even a second. Before my restaurant opened, this was a small commercial bank. The restaurant owner's words were still echoing in Ian's head. If the clinic only existed in his imagination, it would mean that Ivan, the people have never existed, all this is an illusion. No, this is a paradox. Kaylan suddenly woke up. If Ivan did not exist, then there would be no matter that he was infected by the seed of corrosion. If there was no infection incident, there would be no need for him to go to the undersea city to look for flesh-eating worms. Then it's impossible for him to get acquainted with Zofia. This doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense at all. This world seems normal, but it is full of loopholes. Kaylan suddenly discovered that the faces of the diners in the restaurant were all blurry. Only when he focused on those people could he see their faces clearly, and those people in the corner of his eye, all of them the face is actually just the simplest outline. Not only that, even the scene was pieced together. The plates used to serve food in the restaurant are printed with the trademark of a barbecue restaurant that I often go to. Those outrageously exquisite dishes are based on scenes from old-time movies that I have watched, even after the rusty exhaust fan in the kitchen was also copied from the wall of the grain warehouse that served as a safe house. It's a dream. It is a dream made up of fragments of my own memory. Everything here is something I have seen or thought about before, even the people in the scene are like this. The owner of that restaurant, his face clearly looks exactly like Ivan. Kaylan quickly turned back and knocked open the kitchen again, but this time, he found that there was no one in the kitchen. The operating table was empty, some tattered kitchen utensils were piled randomly in the corner, and the ground was covered with a thick layer of dust. Kaylan turned his head in shock and saw that the lobby of the restaurant was also in ruins. The decorations on the walls and ceiling had aged and faded. The tables, chairs, and cabinets were even more dilapidated. The dirty glass exterior walls were still stuck with. There was a notice saying the shop is open for rent, but even this notice was yellowed and brittle. This restaurant has been closed for a long time, Zofia said, standing at the door. Are you planning to buy this land? Use it as the office of the new hunting group? Kaylan raised his head and stared at Zofia's face. There was nothing incongruous about this face, it was exactly the same as the Zofia in his memory. This is a dream, right? Kaylan asked. What did you say? Zofia asked in confusion. I'm trapped in this dream. I know it's a dream, but I don't know how to get out. Are you having a nightmare? Zofia asked cautiously, but you look like this now, you are obviously awake. I have to get out of here. Kaylan no longer paid attention to Zofia. He looked around and then stopped at the car Zofia drove. He quickly walked over, opened the car door, found a pistol from the glove box, and then put the muzzle of the gun into his mouth. If you beat yourself to death, you should be able to escape this dream, right? However, just when he was about to pull the trigger, he hesitated. He thought of those ruin hunters who went crazy after coming out of the sinkhole. Some of them shot themselves and the people around them, presumably, some of them found themselves trapped in a dream and planned to use this violent method to wake themselves up. But when they pulled the trigger, they actually killed people in the real world. Is he awake or deep in a dream, or is he half dream and half awake? If you pull the trigger, will the bullet go through your brain? Will he wake up or die directly? Kaylan suddenly understood why those people went crazy. He loosened his fingers and took the pistol out of his mouth. He turned around and saw Zofia standing silently behind him, making no sound and showing no expression on her face. She didn't stop Kaylan from committing suicide. In fact, she didn't even move. Like a puppet whose strings had been cut, she stood quietly on the street, staring at Kaylan indifferently. Kaylan raised the gun towards her, took aim, and then slowly lowered it. "I won't shoot because I don't know if pulling the trigger will really kill you, I'm just confused. If it were in the real world, your bodyguards would come out to stop me." Sophia didn't react at all, because Kaylan had never seen how she would react when facing his own gun, and Kaylan had never imagined such a scene, so there was a gap in this memory. Nightmares are based on one's own memory. It cannot construct things it has never seen out of thin air, but it can induce itself step by step toward madness and self-destruction. However, Kaylan failed to fulfill its wish. P.S. When I was writing the recent plot, I tried to substitute it for myself, and then I had a very strange dream at night. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 261. Kaylan walked forward along the street. Sure enough, as he walked to a block he had never been to, the surrounding buildings began to repeat. It was like a lazy programmer designing those in the game scene. When players cannot enter areas, they constantly use copy and paste and rely on the limited modeling resources in the database to fill these empty areas. In some places, there is even a very strange dislocation phenomenon. Two identical houses overlap each other as if they are passing through molds, a section of suspended track hangs upside down under the dome, and dozens of hover cars seem to be in a state of zero gravity, floating quietly in mid-air. Sure enough, it is as absurd as a dream. Kaylan murmured to himself, but what surprised him was, this dream, to him, was not a nightmare at all. Are these the things you fear most deep down in your consciousness? Although this twisted and absurd world made Kaylan feel very awkward, it was far from scary. Compared with the dreams of those crazy ruin hunters, this dream of mine can be said to be very mild. Maybe it's because I've seen through the dream, so I don't feel scared, but now that I've seen through it, how do I get out of it? Kaylan continued to walk forward, and he found that all the places he had been to, or had seen in photos, and had an impression of, the streets, buildings, public facilities and even pedestrians were completely consistent with the real world, and those that he did not places that I have been to but have never seen before and have no impression at all in my memory are in complete chaos. There are people in those places, but these people just retain the general appearance of people. They have no faces and no gender. They are almost all tall, short, fat, and thin, and they are all carved from the same mold. They are all wearing the simplest white clothes. The shirt and white trousers stood there like a puppet, maintaining a certain posture, motionless. Even the little model figures in the holographic concept drawings of the real estate developers' new properties have much more details than these people. They can't be counted at all, they are just symbols used to represent people. In Ian's subconscious, there should be people on the street and people in the house, so these people appeared, there it exists only to fill the vacancies in the scene. Kaylan raised his pistol and pointed it at those people, but he did not pull the trigger, but walked towards one of them step by step. When he was less than 3 meters away from the man, he suddenly let out a cry of surprise. At the same time, the man's face gradually became clearer. It was Benson, the hunter of the Aurora Consortium. The clothes he was wearing had changed into the lead gray training uniform issued by the Aurora Hunting Group, and on his waist was a sharp alloy hand axe. "What are you doing?" Benson yelled, with a look of shock and anger on his face, and he subconsciously reached for the axe on his waist. Kaylan did not fire, but flew up and kicked the opponent's elbow. Snapped. "Ah!" Benson screamed, and the axe he had just pulled out slipped from his stiff fingertips, and his whole arm began to twitch involuntarily. The area Kaylan kicked happened to be the ruler on the inside of his elbow joint. Neural groove, this place also has a common name, called Majin. "Asshole," Benson said angrily. He covered his completely paralyzed arm with his other hand, raised his leg and kicked Kaylan in the chin. The thick military boots brought a whistling sound. Benson's, although he is very tall, his lower body is extremely stable. His two thick and powerful thighs are even thicker than Ian's waist. The power of this kick may be able to knock Lan off if he is hit hard. Ian's entire jawbone was shattered by the kick. How do you feel? This guy is much stronger than in reality. Is it because his memory fragments are not accurate enough? Lan thought this way. He tapped his toes lightly on the ground and retreated quickly, just in time to avoid the opponent's attack. A kick. You guys who pick up garbage. The anger on Benson's face grew. He shook his numb arm and pushed towards Lan. You are all going to die. Wait a moment. Lan was keenly aware of the problem. Benson was talking about you guys rather than you guys. In other words, in this dream where the hounds and the others do not exist, he was an exception. This discovery immediately shocked Lan. He took a few steps back and asked, you said you all have to die, but I am the only one here, so who are the others? Others? Benson was stunned. For a moment, his face turned into a blurry shadow, but soon it returned to normal. I don't know what you are talking about, but since you are unlucky enough to be hit by me today, then you can't even think of leaving here alive. This is Fang. Lan hadn't said the word arc before, but he suddenly discovered that the surrounding environment had unknowingly changed dramatically, and turned into a place on Alpha Planet. Empty wasteland. Benson kicked his foot to the ground and suddenly began to accelerate towards Lan. He waved his fist hard and swung it towards Ian's head. The strength is very strong, but unfortunately the flexibility is a bit poor. Although I have never really fought with you, in my impression, you are such a person. Lan stood up and walked from Benson's. He walked around on the right side. The opponent's right hand had not yet recovered from the paralysis. Although he could clearly see the direction in which Lan was dodging, there was no way he could reach out and catch Lan. I don't know why you showed up here, but if I want to kill you, all I have to do is pull the trigger. Lan seemed to be saying to Benson or talking to himself, but I always feel that this dream is inducing me to shoot. I don't know what I am facing in the real world now. Maybe if I pull the trigger, I can really kill something. But I don't. Lan suddenly turned around, stepped forward like a ghost, put his 5 fingers together into a hand knife, and slashed hard at the back of Benson's neck. But at this moment, Benson disappeared and was replaced by the Mohawk, who was also a hunter of the Aurora Consortium, the genetically modified man named Dana. He slipped under Ian's hand like a flexible snake, and in the blink of an eye, the distance between the two was nearly 10 meters. He turned his head and showed a weird smile to Lan. His bright red tongue with a fork at the front stuck out from his mouth and flexibly licked his pale and chapped lips. Hee, are you a hunter? Or my prey? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 262. I'm your father. As soon as he finished speaking, Lan appeared in front of Dana as if teleporting. Just now, Lan discovered that the ability to stop time can be used in this dream. Moreover, when everything around him is frozen, he can move freely in this stagnant time without any shackles. Could it be that because this is a dream, the laws in the real world can be changed according to one's own will? Doesn't that mean that as long as your mind is big enough and your will is strong enough, you can completely control this dream world? This issue can be studied carefully later, but for now, at least the immediate trouble must be dealt with. Lan took a few steps back, took a running start, accelerated, and then jumped forward. When the time stop was lifted, from Dana's perspective, Lan seemed to teleport to his face from 10 meters away. Taking advantage of this momentum, Lan hit Dana with a knee and hit Dana hard on the chin. The other person even kept that weird smile on his face, but in the next second, his upper and lower jaws were already moving hard. They collided hard together, and the broken teeth splashed out mixed with saliva and blood. Even the bright red letter that had no time to retract was broken by his own teeth with a click and fell to the ground. Under the influence of conditioned reflex nerves, the half of the letter twitched and beat crazily on the ground, splattering blood everywhere. Dana's entire face has been distorted, and the cracked wound extends from the cheek to the base of the ear, which perfectly explains what it is like to be skinned to pieces. As for the lower jaw that was directly attacked, it was completely shattered. Cracked, torn flesh and blood can even be seen with misplaced white bone stubble. Ah, ah. A painful scream came from Dana's throat, and he hurriedly fumbled with the equipment belt around his waist. What he was looking for should be a powerful analgesic such as morphine injections. Medicine, but the severe pain had made him lose the ability to distinguish the type of medicine. As soon as his fingers touched a needle, he grabbed it out and stuck it in his leg. It was not a painkiller, but a syringe filled with LCL liquid. In this tube of orange-yellow transparent liquid, there was a small amount of dark red biological tissue suspended. Living cells of flesh-eating worms. Or seeds of erosion. No, neither. Kaylan watched helplessly as the contents of the syringe were pushed into Dana's body, and then, the other person's body began to emerge. Countless tiny granules. It's a meat bread variant. Seeing the changes in the opponent's body, Kaylan immediately reacted. This is a biological weapon recorded on the Tiankeng stone tablet. This biological weapon has the characteristics of both animals and plants. And the characteristics of fungi. It can use the host's body as a breeding ground to grow rapidly. However, at the end of the stone tablet, it is clearly marked that the experimental subject's genetic sequence has serious defects. After the third stage of the larvae, all cells will rapidly undergo apoptosis. Sure enough, when the hyphae spitting out from the top of the granulation buds wrapped Dana's entire body, the white hyphae quickly turned into deep black, and the granulation buds began to wither one after another. But as a hotbed of meat-breeding alien seedlings, Dana did not die. Although all his flesh and blood were eaten away by this parasite, the parasite also gave the host a stronger vitality. However, in Ian's view, this is not a gift at all. It will only allow him to survive for a while, and as a price, he will endure unimaginable things during the period before his death. Great pain. But before Kaylan could put an end to Dana's pain with his own hands, he turned into a black skeleton and struggled to get up from the ground. Black skeleton. Kaylan rubbed his temples with a headache. It's endless. At this time, a scene that surprised Kaylan appeared. Just as the black skeleton stood up, it disintegrated on its own. The fragments scattered on the ground seemed to be attracted together by a magnet, and it turned back into the white-clothed and white trousers figure from the beginning. Faceless doll. Kaylan just thought about this picture in his mind, but he didn't expect that it was directly reflected in the dream world. Could it be that the control of this dream world has always been in my hands? But, if that's the case, why don't hounds and the others exist in this world? Since this dream world is built based on one's own memories, then as teammates who have been through life and death together, why has everything related to them been erased? This is not a computer program, so it can't be said to have a bug, right? Kaylan stared at the faceless doll in front of him, imagining how it would turn into a hound or some other teammates. However, no matter how many times he tried, the doll never changed at all. Kaylan tried to imagine the other people, and suddenly, a shocked Sakurina appeared in front of him, still holding the small pistol with the magazine removed. Damn! Is there really a bug? Sakurina disappeared, and the faceless doll returned to its original position again. Kaylan clearly remembers their existence, but he can't let them appear in his dream world. To take a step back, even if the hounds really don't exist in the real world, then why can't Kaylan rely on his memory? Image, create a virtual character? Why can't they just do it when everyone else can? Kaylan felt that if he continued to delve deeper into this question, he might not get the answer. After all, this was just a dream, and the top priority was how to wake up from this dream. He didn't know where he was in reality. Maybe he was in a certain ward, maybe he was still lying in the cabin of the rescue ship, maybe he was still in this bottomless sinkhole. But no matter where he is, he must wake up as soon as possible. Kaylan initially thought that by completely destroying this dream world, he might be able to break free from it, but when he leveled several majestic mountain peaks and blew up most of the Ark to pieces, he realized this is completely useless work. This is a dream world, and things cannot be viewed according to conventional physical laws. Flattened mountains and blown up buildings can appear there intact immediately as long as he changes his mind. This is like a virtual world built with computer programs. The essence of everything he sees is a bunch of zeros and ones. He destroys these things, just deleting the data, and wants to destroy. The most direct way to destroy this virtual world is to take a hammer and smash the hard drive that stores data from the outside world. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 263. But from another perspective, the hard drive carrying these data is actually Ian's brain. If Kaylan chooses to drink a bullet and commit suicide in the dream, there is a high probability that Kaylan in the real world will also be shot. You can indeed escape from the dream by cutting off your forehead, but the price paid is really a little bit high. Kaylan must find a way to heat shut down. He feels like he is trapped in an immersive game now. He is the god of this game world and can do anything here. The only thing I can't find is the exit game button. Moreover, this game also has a serious bug, and resources related to hounds and others cannot be called out. Wait a moment. Can't be called. Kaylan was very keenly aware of something unusual. If this dream world is really regarded as a game program, are these resources that cannot be retrieved already occupied? A running program cannot be deleted. In other words, the hounds and the others are also in this dream now. They are also players in this game world, so all the memories related to them can't appear in this dream. Computers can connect to the internet. Could they be able to connect to the internet in dreams? Kaylan said to himself in disbelief, but other than that, it was difficult for him to come up with another more reasonable explanation. Just when Kaylan was thinking this, the surrounding environment changed drastically. Before he could even see clearly where he was, the sound of dense gunfire penetrated his ears one after another. Kaylan found that his consciousness was suspended hundreds of meters in the sky. He looked down and saw a human army surrounded by countless armored beasts in a fortress-like fortification with a diameter of less than 100 meters. It's almost unbearable. The Prisma beast is a relatively rare social creature on Alpha Planet. Although rare, the number of each group is very large. The number of worker ants alone exceeds 1 million. Speaking of worker ants, we have to talk about the characteristics of this creature. The social structure of the ants is very similar to that of ants on the Earth, except for the queen and the male ants who are responsible for breeding. In addition, the most numerous ones are soldier ants and worker ants that have no reproductive ability. The size and appearance of these four kinds of armored beasts are very different. The soldier ant armored beast is like a huge tortoise, with a body length of 20 to 30 meters, a height of about 15 meters, and 6 it has short, powerful legs and a solid back. It moves slowly but has amazing defense. Its main attack methods are hitting, crushing, and spitting out plasma balls from its mouth. Although the attack power of plasma balls is not as good as the plasma on human battleships cannon, but if ordinary people accidentally touch it, it will vaporize instantly. The worker ant armored beast is almost the same size as an adult man. It uses 6 arthropods wrapped in an exoskeleton to move very quickly. However, its attack methods are relatively simple. It can only use its arthropods or sharp beak-like mouthparts for close combat. Generally speaking, as long as a sufficient distance can be maintained, a human soldier with moderate marksmanship can easily kill a worker ant one-on-one. However, the biggest characteristic of worker ants is that they are numerous and fearless of death. When worker ants all over the mountains and plains are rushing towards the human army, if there are not enough hard fortifications or heavy firepower, even the most elite among humans, the troops cannot last long. There are about 100,000 armored beasts besieging the fortress, most of them are worker ants. The number of soldier ants is only about 20. Despite this, the plasma cannon with a cooling time of only about half a minute still gives the human side has created huge pressure. With the bombardments again and again, the luster of the energy shield covering the fortress is quickly dimming. It won't be long before the shield will completely collapse due to insufficient energy supply. Under the energy shield, countless worker ants were still charging towards the outer wall of the fortress in waves. The cannons on the wall roared crazily, and there were piles of cannons next to the base. Empty cartridge cases and discarded gun barrels were found. Kaylan could completely foresee that if there was no air support, it would only be a matter of time before the entire army was wiped out, but what made Kaylan puzzled was, why did this battle occur in his dream world? At this moment, a familiar figure appeared in his field of vision. Hound, no, to be precise, he was still called Nick at this time, and he was a field force commander with the rank of colonel. Nick stood at the entrance to the temporary command post in the center of the fortress, holding a high-power military communicator in his hand and yelling into the microphone, "Why are the reinforcements delayed? I'm about to run out of humming men. Why can't we still see our warships in the sky? Are your reinforcements planning to come to collect my body? 10 minutes. 10 minutes. How many humming 10 minutes have I been waiting? When you first said this, I still had 25 tanks and more than 1,000 soldiers. Now, I have 3 tanks left and less than 150 men." The more Nick spoke, the angrier he became. He raised his hand and wanted to smash the communicator, but when he glanced at the soldiers who were still resisting on the wall, he sighed imperceptibly and put his hand down again. "No matter what your reasons are, I need reinforcements. The sooner the better. Even if there are no battleships, get me a few transport planes, I can rescue one by one. I can't let them all die here." Kaylan finally understood, this was the Hound's nightmare. As for why the Hound retired from the army, he had never told anyone the details. Kaylan only heard some rumors from Leighton. It is said that, in addition to the pension issue, it was also related to a tragic defeat commanded by him. From this point of view, this matter should be the shadow hidden deep in the heart of the Hound. Kaylan wanted to wave his hand and wipe out all the armored beasts besieging the fortress, but he found that he had no influence on the world at all. This was the Hound's dream, not his. He just a spectator. What made him wonder was why his consciousness could travel into the Hound's dream. Could it be that their dreams were connected together by something, just like a computer's local area network? But judging from the behavior of the Hound, he seemed to be deeply involved in it, completely unaware that it was just a dream. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 264. Countless worker ants continued to pour towards the fortress. The piles of corpses under the wall were almost as high as the top of the wall. The following armored beasts rushed up directly, stepping on the corpses of the same kind, and began to slaughter the ordinary people standing on the top of the wall. Infantry. The light infantry retreats. The armored troops go up, concentrate the directional mines and explosives, and clean up the corpses of those bugs. Hound commanded the troops loudly, and a dozen soldiers wearing power armor quickly ran behind the wall. The propeller sprayed out hot tail flames, and he jumped onto the wall with a slight leap. The heavy chainsaw in his hands started to swing open and closed among a bunch of worker ants. Kaylan noticed that these dozen armored soldiers were definitely not the new force under the Hounds. The armor on their bodies was stained with a large amount of the blue fluorescent blood unique to the armored beasts, and the surface was covered with scratches of varying depths. Several of the armors were so damaged that even the most basic protective function was lost. The vital points of the wearer's chest and abdomen were completely exposed, and they looked no different from a pair of powered exoskeletons pieced together from discarded parts. These people should have just returned from the front line of the extremely fierce battle. They just rested for a while in the rear, replenished ammunition and fuel, and did not even have time to repair the damaged armor before they were thrown into the battle again. Middle. There are few cards left in Hound's hand that can be played. The troops, ammunition, and energy are all at stake. The entire fortress may be swallowed up by these armored beasts at any time. What's more, as long as the energy of the protective shield above their heads is exhausted, there is no need for the worker ant armored beasts to tear apart the defense line. The soldier ant level plasma projectiles from a long distance can easily destroy these hundreds of people in one group. People. At this moment, two military transport planes suddenly flew over from a distance, but for some reason, after seeing the two transport planes, Hound grabbed the communicator and shouted for them to turn around. Turn around quickly, full rudder to right. The next second, a ball of fully charged plasma ejected from the mouth of a soldier ant-level armored beast. It drew an almost straight arc in mid-air and accurately hit the two transport planes. One plane. The other one made an emergency evasive action in mid-air, barely avoiding the aftermath of the explosion of its companion. It was the cry of the Hound that alerted the other transport plane in time, thus avoiding the fate of both crashing. Kaylan was a little confused for a moment. Could this guy not only have a particularly sensitive sense of smell, but also have such good eyesight? Even Kaylan, who was in God's perspective, didn't notice that a soldier ant-level armored beast secretly raised its head and aimed at the transport plane in the distance. Why would the Hound in the fortress see that? The angle, the view should be blocked. But Kaylan couldn't control this dream. He couldn't play back the scene just now to check the missed details, so he could only give up. The remaining transport plane finally passed through the opening in the protective cover unharmed and landed in the fortress. How much supplies have you brought? How many ammunition and crystals are on the plane? Medical supplies. Hound walked to the transport plane in 3 steps and then asked, holding the door open. No. In order to get to the battlefield as quickly as possible, we didn't bring any supplies, the soldier on the plane said to the Hound. Didn't I tell you to bring more ammunition and crystals? Didn't you hear me? How many times have I told you, how many times? The Hound punched the upper door of the hatch hard, making a thud sound. There was a muffled sound. But the order we received is to ensure your safety, Colonel. Please board the plane immediately. Get on the plane. Get on your humming plane. I won't leave. If you humming push me one more time, I'll kill you. After Hound finished speaking, he turned to the bodyguards beside him and said, have people carry out all the wounded. Come here and move to the plane. The seriously injured who have no fighting ability are given priority. Soon, dozens of seriously injured people lying on simple stretchers were carried onto the plane. In addition, a large number of metal dog tags stained with blood or even minced meat were also handed to the crew. In the hands of personnel. Tell the pilot not to fly back immediately after taking off. Turn left first. There are the fewest soldier ants there. Move to a safe distance before adjusting the direction. Remember, turn left first, in the cabin. At the last second before the door closed, Hound spoke to the crew with a serious look on his face. Amidst the dull roar of the vertical propeller, the transport aircraft began to slowly rise into the air. Then, the propeller nozzle began to turn to the right, turning the direction of the nose to the left. I don't know whether it was due to the heavy load due to the full load of wounded people, or whether the aircraft body was damaged in the explosion just now, but the speed of the transport plane was much slower than when it arrived. Just when it flew out of the sky above the fortress, it hit a ball of plasma that was coming at high speed. Boom! What the hell? Hound grabbed the military cap on his head and threw it to the ground hard. Kaylan knew that according to the original plot direction, the Hound himself should not die, but it is estimated that few of the soldiers under his command can return to the Ark alive. Instead of waiting for slow death, it is better to concentrate the troops towards the Ark. If we charge at the weakest part of the siege, maybe a miracle will happen. It would be nice if I could communicate with the Hound, even if I can't help him break this deadlock, at least I have to make him understand that this is all just a dream. Just when Kaylan was thinking this, his perspective suddenly something had changed. He looked around and suddenly found that he had traveled into the body of a soldier, and he was also a bodyguard beside a Hound. What is this? Seize the body? Consciousness invasion? Does this dream world really have a structure similar to a computer program? As an external visitor, I only have read-only permission, but when I assimilate myself into a part of the dream, I can obtain the ability to interfere with this dream. Kaylan raised his head and happened to see the Hound throwing a tantrum not far away. He thought for a moment that if he directly interfered with violent means, it might have some bad consequences. This is like putting when a person who is sleepwalking wakes up, he may enter a brief state of insanity, and the current dream world is much more real than ordinary nightmares. Kaylan cannot guarantee that, and directly puts it into the dream world. Will the waking up of Hounds have some unpredictable consequences? It's better to follow the development of the dream and find a way to help the Hound get out of this predicament. Maybe the Hound will wake up on its own. If that doesn't work, then use violent means to crack it. Colonel, if it doesn't work, let's find a way to break out. Kaylan turned around and said to the Hound as a personal guard. But what he didn't expect was that the Hound, who was still in a state of rage just now, suddenly seemed to have changed. He grabbed his arm, with a livid face, and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" I am." Kaylan subconsciously lowered his head to see the dog tag hanging around his neck, but the Hound reached out first and pulled the dog tag off. He used so much force that the edge of the metal dog tag even cut the skin of his palm, but the Hound seemed not to feel any pain at all. "Answer my question," the Hound said again. "Colonel, those bugs are about to break through our defense line." "That's not important. I just want to know who you are, or what are you?" Hound pulled out his pistol and put it on Ian's head. "You are not Gates. Gates would not do this. Talk to me, and you won't say such a thing to me at this time." The Hound's words were unabashedly full of hatred and murderous intent. "So, tell me, who are you? Why do you appear in my dream? You know this is a dream? Are you awake?" Kaylan looked at the Hound with some surprise. Although the Hound did not answer immediately, Kaylan already knew the answer from the other person's eyes. "Of course I know, although I have been troubled by this nightmare for more than 10 years, it is thanks to this that I know all the details of this dream clearly. I know where each character will be. Time speaks and does things, and you are as conspicuous as a drop of black ink splashed on a white paper. It's really too abrupt." "I'm Kaylan." "What did you say?" "Believe it or not, I am Kaylan." Kaylan met the Hound's gaze and looked at him. "I don't believe it." Hound shook his head vigorously, but let go of his hand. "Reason tells me that Kaylan can't appear here, but reason also tells me that in dreams, reason is a humming piece of shit. Whether you are Kaylan or something else, I just humming think of you as Kaylan." Hound said, spitting on the ground. "Bah, this is just a dream anyway. The worst case scenario is that I will go crazy. Maybe it would be a relief if I died with these little bastards here back then." "Kaylan. Okay, let's just think you are Kaylan. Tell me how you came into my dream." The Hound turned around, took out 2 bottles of soda from the supply box on the side, and put the bottle mouth on. As soon as the edge of the box mouth hit, the bottle cap flew out. He handed one of the bottles of soda to Kaylan and said, "It is forbidden to drink alcoholic beverages during the march. This is the only thing, so just drink it." Kaylan looked at the soda bottle in his hand. The bottle was still stained with a few spots of blood that had already solidified. Bubbles were emerging from the dark brown liquid. As soon as he lifted the bottle, a piece of it flew out of nowhere. The steel fragments scratched against his armor, just in time to smash the soda bottle in his hand. "It's a pity," "This is the last bottle," the hound said without changing his expression. The fragment was less than 20 centimeters away from him and could almost cut his throat. Not far away, a dozen worker ants swarmed up and knocked over a soldier who was completely exhausted. Countless sharp joints penetrated along the gaps in the power armor, tearing and shredding the soldier's body. The hound, on the other hand, turned a blind eye, raising his head and drinking the soda in the bottle. Kaylan glanced at the soda bottle with only the upper half left in his hand, threw it aside helplessly, and roughly talked about what he encountered in the dream world. "It seems that our situations are similar. The only difference is that you can control your dreams at will, but I can't." The hound threw the empty bottle towards the wall. "If I could, I would really like to conjure up a fleet and crush these bugs directly. But, since you know this is a dream, why did you look like you were completely immersed in it just now?" Kaylan asked, the doubts in his heart. Hound sighed, "I just want to try to see if I can change the outcome of that day, even if it's just in a dream. I want to know if there is a better battle plan. Can you let more people go back alive, even if it's just one more person?" He squatted down and looked at the gradually crumbling defense line and said, "I regarded this nightmare as a sandbox and simulated the battle that day over and over again, but in the end I found that I couldn't change anything. Even in the dream, I can't change anything." The hound's tone was extremely frustrated, and he clenched his fists so tightly that his nails cut into the flesh of his palms. "Things have already happened. Even if you eliminate all these armored beasts in your dream, the dead people will not come back," Kaylan said. "It is better to think about how you can escape from this dream world. Get out, this is the top priority. Didn't you say that you can control your dreams at will? What? Are you trapped in this too?" Hound raised his head and looked at Kaylan in the form of Gates with some confusion. "I forgot to tell you, I can do anything in my own dream, except for two things. One is to find anything related to you, and the other is to wake up completely from this dream. Obviously the consciousness is awake, but I just can't get rid of this nightmare. It seems that those crazy ruin hunters have the same experience as us," the hound said. "But why did you run into my dream? Come here? Just because you thought about it? I'm not sure. I guess it may be because of the mental attack that connects the dream worlds of several of us. It is also for this reason that in my own dreams, everything related to you neither can exist. I think that in your dreams, things related to me cannot appear." "Then you are right now, you are the Gates guy now, not Kaylan. However, on the other hand, following this clue, I deduced two pieces of news, one good news and one bad news. Don't let me choose which one to listen to first, just tell them together." Hound waved his hand. "The good news is that except for us, everyone else should still be alive, and the bad news is, we in the real world are probably trapped in this S-class ruins at the moment." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 265. That is to say, if something finds our body now, we don't even have the ability to resist. Damn it, it makes me panic just thinking about it, Hound said. Even if there is no external threat, our bodies will go into shock due to dehydration over time, and eventually die of organ failure, Kaylan added. So, the top priority is to find a way to escape from this dream world. Shall we not be awakened by thirst? Asked the Hound. Probably not. Even if the body sends a signal to the brain that it is dehydrated, this thirst symptom will only appear in our dreams and will not prompt us to wake up. You just drank a whole bottle of soda. Do you feel bloated in your abdomen from the carbon dioxide escaping from the soda? When you say it like that, it doesn't seem like it's true. I felt my throat was a little dry just now, and it's still very dry now. Then how are we going to get out? I have a way. Kaylan looked at the gun in the Hound's hand and said, kill me to death and give it a try. Beat to death, I won't kill you in reality, Right, Hound said with some worry. How about a shot in the leg first? Okay, get ready, I'm going to shoot. Hound nodded, raised the gun in his hand, and pointed it at Gates, Ian's leg. 3, 2, 1. Bang. The armor-piercing bullet with a caliber of 10.5 mm easily tore through the polymer armor on Gates' leg and rotated into the leg muscles. Then, the deformed warhead began to roll, forming a huge hole in the flesh. The cavity, viewed from the front, there was only a bullet hole the size of a coin, and behind the bullet hole, several kilograms of flesh had been torn off, and blood was spattered more than 10 meters away. If a normal person had received such a shot in the leg, he would have fallen to the ground long ago, but Kaylan just felt unsteady. Can't you feel pain? The Hound also noticed the abnormality and asked. I can feel a little bit, but just a little bit, like a dull pain like being bitten by a small insect through my clothes. I think maybe it's because this body doesn't belong to me, Kaylan replied. Road. Then even if I shoot you in the head, it will only be Gates who is killed, not you, right? That's the theory. Then I really shot. The Hound said nothing more, pointed the crosshair directly at Gates' head, and pulled the trigger. Bang. At the moment when the bullet penetrated Gates's head, Kaylan only felt a spin, and the scene in front of him began to gradually distort. Through the perspective of Gates after he fell, Kaylan could see the Hound grabbing his own. His shoulders were shaking vigorously, and his lips were opening and closing rapidly, as if he was saying something loudly. However, Kaylan could no longer hear anything. Only darkness remained in his field of vision. It took an unknown amount of time before Kaylan regained consciousness again. Although the surroundings were still dark, he could vaguely smell a faint sour smell. Sour. This is the unique smell of a high-efficiency oxygen generator that reacts to generate oxygen. This time Kaylan and the others explored the deep pit, and the equipment they carried included high-pressure tanks containing this oxygen generator. Am I back to the real world? Ian's first reaction was to reach out and fumble around on his body. He first touched the hard-powered exoskeleton on his chest, followed by the cold-proof and load-resistant clothing worn inside the exoskeleton. He reached down and found that the equipment bag hanging on his waist was not missing, and everything in it was still there. Kaylan found a cold lighting rod and gently twisted the metal cover at the end of the lighting rod. The green light immediately dispersed the surrounding darkness. This is a medium-sized stone chamber. The architectural style is very similar to the one in ruins A-087. In the center of the stone chamber is a rectangular stone platform over 1 meter high. Kaylan is on this stone platform. Wake up. He turned over and jumped off the stone platform, pulled out his pistol and loaded a bullet into the chamber. How could this be such a ghost place? The last time they explored the glacier ruins, they encountered a powerful monster like a flesh centipede in the stone chamber. If Asano Akira hadn't suddenly appeared, Kaylan and Layton would have had to explain where it was, but in this stone chamber now, it gave Kaylan a very familiar feeling. If a big guy jumped out at this time, it would be great fun. Kaylan knew that the gun in his hand would not pose a threat to that kind of thing, but holding it in his hand would give him some courage. He held a gun in one hand and a lighting rod in the other, and walked around the stone platform. There was no secret passage under the stone platform, and the ceiling above was also intact. The only entrance and exit was the one at the 3 o'clock direction of the stone platform. Open the stone door. What confused Kaylan the most was, why did he wake up in such a stone room after falling into the sinkhole? Could it be that something moved itself here? He looked back at the stone platform behind him, and a very uncomfortable feeling came over him. The stone platform was like an anatomy table, and he lying on it was like a creature waiting to be dissected. Specimen. Fortunately, when he woke up, there were no missing parts on his body. In several horror movies that Kaylan had watched, the unlucky protagonists found themselves being raped as soon as they woke up. After being disemboweled, the lucky guy was only missing a kidney, but the unlucky guy was not only missing a kidney, but also had a lot of stuff in his body. Kaylan subconsciously pressed his belly. Well, there shouldn't be an extra arm or anything else inside. The stone platform is solid, and there are no alien technological devices left behind by the Alpha civilization in the stone chamber. The only thing with some technological content is probably the stone door opened with energy crystals. On this stone door, there is a warning written in Alpha text. Slogan: this is an important experimental site. Personnel with non-level 6 permissions or above are strictly prohibited from entering. A place of experiment, is this a laboratory? Kaylan said to himself, but the problem is that there is no experimental equipment here. Could it be that this is an observation room, and I am the experimental sample being observed? He raised his head again and scanned the corners of the ceiling. However, just like the first inspection, he did not find any monitoring devices. However, Kaylan knew that with the technological level of Alpha civilization, even if a monitoring device was installed in this stone room, it would be difficult to find it with his naked eyes. The gap between human civilization and Alpha civilization is really too big. It's like throwing a chimpanzee into the ruins of a human city. The chimpanzee simply cannot understand how humans built such a magnificent city. And humans cannot understand how far Alpha civilization has developed. Kaylan opened the equipment bag and checked everything inside. As he expected, all electronic equipment has failed. This is another manifestation of technological crushing. In most of the Alpha civilization ruins, human technological equipment is difficult to play its due role. While Alpha civilization's own things will not be affected in any way. It is said that the Institute has made major breakthroughs in the research of crystal circuit structures in recent years. If this Alpha civilization technology can be transplanted into human electronic equipment, the electromagnetic interference in the ruins will no longer interfere with these equipment. But to really reach this point, I'm afraid it will take an extremely long period of time. However, in addition to this method, hunters have another way, to directly use the things unearthed from the Alpha ruins as their own equipment. Among these things, there are also some that are highly practical but have low technical content. No matter how high-end it is, such as the chip that Kaylan took out from his bag. This is a rhombus-shaped chip made of a material similar to that of an energy crystal. Inside the chip, there are two light points, one red and one blue, swimming around. The blue point will always point to the north pole of Alpha Star, while the red point will be exactly the opposite. This thing is the compass used by the Alpha people, but it will not be interfered by any magnetic field, so its versatility is much greater than the compass made by humans. In order to take a picture of this gadget, Kaylan spent a total of 680,000 credits, but the money was worth it. If he could have had this thing on the desert island last time, he wouldn't have been underground lost in the maze. According to the guidance of the blue light spot, the side of the stone gate is due north. There is no other way to go anyway. Kaylan walked to the stone door and stuffed a few energy crystals into the grooves on the door. There was a tooth-wrenching friction sound, and the stone door slowly moved to one side. Behind the stone door, there was still an identical stone chamber. However, on the stone platform in the middle of the stone room, there was a person Kaylan didn't recognize at all. He walked forward and looked carefully at the sleeping person. The other person was wearing an old cold-proof suit. There was a set of safety belts on the outside of the cold-proof suit, except for the shoulders and waist. The buckles at the top have been broken, and the outer layer of the cold weather jacket inside has been torn open, exposing the filling inside. There is also a hexagonal armband affixed to his right arm. Although Kaylan has never seen the emblem on the armband, he still recognizes the Chinese characters below: North Star Hunting Group 4th Division Intern Hunter CAO Feng Blood Type, O-Type. This guy is one of Danner's men, one of the unlucky ones who were deceived by the Polaris Hunting Group into working as mining tools. This person is obviously immersed in the dream world. Judging from his pale face and beads of sweat on his head, his situation is probably not optimistic. If this continues, there is a high probability that he will become a lunatic who has lost his mind, like the group of patients in Nottingham Hospital. Just when Kaylan was about to try to wake him up, the stone door on the other side of the stone room suddenly opened. Who? Kaylan raised his gun, but he happened to see the hound pointing his gun at him. Kaylan. Are you awake too? Kaylan put down the gun and asked. Well, I don't know what happened. After you, or rather, Gates died completely, my dream world stopped, even the bullets that were fired froze in the air, and then in front of my eyes it suddenly became dark, and when I reacted, I found myself lying in this stone room. Hound put the pistol back into its holster and pointed to the stone room behind him. The stone chambers of Hound, Kaylan, and Cao Feng of the Polaris hunting group are all exactly the same. The only difference is that the stone chamber where Cao Feng is located has a stone door on all four walls. If these stone chambers are in the shape of 10 in terms of glyph distribution, Cao Feng's room is exactly at the intersection of the cross. This guy, from Polaris, Hound looked at Cao Feng lying on the stone platform and asked. Yes, Kaylan nodded, his condition is not good. I want to try to see if I can wake him up. Although forcibly awakening a person immersed in the dream world may have unpredictable consequences, if left alone, he will only sink deeper and deeper until his self-consciousness is completely swallowed up by the nightmare. In layman's terms, he will become completely crazy. Lose. It's okay to give it a try, but you have to move faster. Besides us, others might be trapped in that damn dream world just like this guy. I know. Kaylan moved Cao Feng off the stone platform and laid it flat on the ground. Then he took out an injection and several small medicine bottles from the bag. Most of these drugs are psychotropic drugs. Kaylan specially prepared for this exploration operation, including a sedative named Wake 116, which can quickly calm down people with unstable mental states. He mixed the medicinal powder with saline, and then pumped it into the syringe. The Hound on the side used a dagger to cut open the sleeves of Cao Feng's cold-proof clothes, and simply disinfected the surface of the skin with alcohol cotton balls. Kaylan found the blood vessel and inserted the needle. As the medicine was slowly pushed in, Cao Feng's body twitched slightly. What's going on? It seems to be worse. I don't know. Kaylan shook his head. Wake 116 is a powerful sedative, but it does not have the effect of relaxing muscles. Logically speaking, it is possible to have such a special drug reaction. But this guy's twitching seems to be getting more and more severe, Hound said. At this moment, he had pressed most of his body on Cao Feng's body, and was grabbing the opponent's wrist with both hands. Despite this, Cao Feng's body it was still trembling like an electric shock. That's the only way to use this dash. Kaylan took out a sealed injection and injected it into Cao Feng's body together with another medicine. Finally, Cao Feng's convulsions stopped and his breathing gradually became calmer. I just injected him with Menzao preparation and neutralizing agent. Although this stuff can calm him down, he will have to sleep for at least 12 hours. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-San. Chapter 266. What should we do now? Leave this guy here, or take him with him. The Hound climbed up from Cao Feng's body and asked Kaylan. Put it here first. Kaylan pointed to the two stone doors on the east and west sides that have not yet been opened. I think there are stone chambers like this behind these two stone doors. Others are probably in here. If the stone chamber where Cao Feng is located is used as the reference point, the south side is the stone chamber where Kaylan woke up, and the north side is the direction from which the Hound came. There is only one door in the stone chambers of Kaylan and the Hound, leading to Cao Feng. Lying in this room, and if you want to continue exploring this ruins, you can only walk on the east and west sides. During the next period of time, Kaylan and Hound walk step by step, as if they were playing some kind of chess game, exploring the surrounding stone chambers one by one. Just as Kaylan expected, in these stone chambers, I found several other teammates and 2 interns from the Polaris hunting group. Lighton and Zwilligita were in relatively good and stable condition, but the situation was completely opposite when Ivan was discovered by them. He had already rolled down from the stone platform to the floor. His facial expression was very ferocious, his limbs kept waving wildly, and from time to time he let out a low roar of unknown meaning in his throat. Kaylan had no choice but to inject him with Menzeo preparation and neutralizer, so that he could fell into a deep sleep. What surprised the hound was that Akira Asano, who was usually calm and didn't talk much, was now deeply trapped in a nightmare. Although his performance was not as crazy as Ivan's, his heart rate increased to 100% per second. More than 180 times, he was in a very dangerous state. I can understand that Ivan would have nightmares. He must have dreamed that he was controlled by the corrosion seed and turned into that disgusting tentacle monster, but Asano Akira, I really can't figure it out. I think his psychological quality is quite good. Okay. Hound said with some confusion. He must have dreamed about that experiment. Kaylan said thoughtfully, that must be the biggest shadow in his heart. Experiment? You mean that, secret force? Hound also heard about it, but he didn't know as much as Kaylan, and Asano Akira didn't like to talk on weekdays, so he didn't ask for the details. Everyone has a past that they don't want to mention, and Hound understands this very well. As long as these things will not affect the team, he will not deliberately expose people's scars. He told me that in the army that participated in the experiment, many people died, and many people went crazy. The closer the people are to the critical point, the more miserable their fate will be, and he can only be regarded as one of the many. The existence of the lowest among the experimental subjects, so he only lost the ability of the visual center of the brain. Kaylan sighed, although I don't know the details of the experiment, but if you think about it, you will know that that kind of experiment must be inhumane. Words. In addition to the 4 Laytons, there are 2 hunters from the Polaris hunting group, 1 male and 1 female. From their armbands, we can tell that the male hunter is named Martin, while the female hunter is named Qin Zhao. Including Cao Feng, these 3 hunters are all very young. You can tell at a glance that they are no more than 20 years old. They probably just finished the compulsory education in ARC and directly applied for the professional training class for ruin hunters. This is actually true. Exactly the same as Kaylan back then. It's just that Kaylan started working alone after graduating from the training class, and they accidentally boarded a black ship like the Polaris hunting group. Even if they don't go crazy after completing this mission, they will be regarded as cheap consumables by the Polaris hunting group and added to the advanced team with the highest casualty rate. Only those who survive from the advanced team will be hunted. Become a full member of the group. Not only the Polaris hunting group, but also most large hunting groups with consortium backgrounds do this. They ruthlessly squeeze the value of these newcomers, even the last piece of carrion on the corpse. Among many senior hunters, when they refer to these trainee hunters, they directly use the word cannon fodder to refer to them, but from another perspective, they themselves also use the word cannon fodder to refer to them. Only those who survive can become the true elite. Compared with these cannon fodder hired by large hunting groups, the initial stage of a lone hunter like Kaylan is even more difficult. Although he is not under the control of large hunting groups, he also cannot obtain the resources provided by those large hunting groups. Whether it is vocational training, ruins information, or various equipment and consumables, you have to find a way to solve it yourself. If you don't have some part-time jobs, your life will be even more difficult than for cannon fodder. These little bastards are really unlucky. They were sent to such a ghost place for their first mission. Hound looked at the 3 trainee hunters lying on the ground and said with some sympathy. They were lucky. I remember that there were more than a dozen people involved in the avalanche at that time. It is estimated that not even the whole bodies of those people were left, Kaylan said. Forget it, let's think about how to get out of this hellish place. He and the hounds found a total of 9 stone chambers, which were connected to each other to form two parallel cross shapes, or in other words, the prefix in Chinese characters. Apart from the stone doors between these stone chambers, Kaylan and the hounds did not find any other passages, that is to say, these 9 stone chambers are a completely sealed space. I think there must be a secret passage. If it's a confined space, how did we get sent here? It can't be some kind of space teleportation technology, right? That's not certain, Kaylan said with a straight face. The strange experience in the underwater city had every reason to believe that the Alpha civilization had mastered mature space technology, but humans had not found any relevant evidence yet. If this is really the case, wouldn't we be doomed? The hound glanced at the packages piled on the ground. The most lacking thing now is food and water. The few of us only brought what was in the emergency kit, and these 3 brats only had 2 bags of refreshing drinks and a few energy bars on them. Together, they were only enough for 9 people for 3 days. I actually thought about using explosives to blow open the outer wall of the stone chamber. Judging from the results of the drilling survey, there is at least a 2-meter thick solid layer on the periphery of these 9 stone chambers, which are all high-density magma rocks. Just the 2-meter thick rock layer alone requires an explosive equivalent of at least we need about 100 units. Moreover, we are still unable to determine whether there is a passage behind the rock formation. Even if there is a passage, in which stone chamber and in which direction? Kaylan continued what the hound said. With the resources we have on hand, we can make up to 300 of standard units of explosives come, which means we only have 3 chances. The hound frowned and paced back and forth in the stone chamber. You are making a conservative estimate. 2 meters thick is just our detection limit. Who knows how thick this rock formation is? If it is 10 to 8 meters, even if all the bombs are piled up in one direction and detonated, we won't be able to get out. When designing these stone chambers, we probably considered the possibility that things trapped inside might use violence to escape. I think our thinking may be wrong. Kaylan thought for a while and said. Wrong idea. Old dog, have you ever played any escape room type of game on the Ark? Kaylan suddenly asked. I've never played it, but I've heard people mention it. It seems like it's all young people who like to play it. Wait, you mean, these stone chambers are actually a secret room? As long as we solve the mystery left by the designer of the secret room, question, can you escape? I think so, Kaylan nodded. But I think it's a bit ridiculous. Are the alphas that boring? Catch us here and let us play puzzle games. This secret room is definitely not designed for us, it's just that we just happen to fall into it. As for whether the alphas are that boring, based on my experience in exploring ruins, everything they do has a very clear purpose, but we just can't understand it. Okay, just treat this as a secret room. Kaylan, have you ever played any escape room games? I have never played the real-life version. Kaylan shook his head, but I have played a lot of video games with this theme. Many of the secret rooms are based on the alpha ruins that exist in reality. There are some in the forum. Paid resource packs can be downloaded. If you want them, I can send you a few next time. The premise is that we can go out. The hound walked around the stone platform. Although I have never played that kind of game, but I have never eaten pork and I have seen pigs running away. In my impression, this kind of game there should always be some mechanism or something in the secret room, such as a rotating vase, a sliding bookshelf, etc. But the problem is that these 9 stone rooms are empty, and the only thing that can be regarded as a thing is these stone platforms. Already, the hound said, suddenly stretched out his foot and kicked the stone platform. But there are no clues or mechanisms on this thing. The bottom is directly integrated with the ground, and it can't even be moved. The stone room where Kaylan and the hound are located is the one where Cao Fen was first found. Now the other 7 sleeping people have been moved into the stone room, and the stone platform in the stone room has also been moved. Kaylan and hound have studied it no less than 10 times. The stone platforms in the other stone chambers are also shaped like birds. Hound shrugged helplessly. I also drilled several holes. These stone platforms are completely solid, with nothing inside except stones. Maybe the point is not the stone platform. Kaylan pondered. Not the stone platform. Where could it be? The ceiling? The floor? Or the wall? The arrangement of the stone chambers, old dog, don't you think the arrangement of these 9 stone chambers is very special? Indeed, the combination of them happens to be the prefix hum in Chinese characters, which fits my current mood quite well, hum the humming alphas. As soon as the hound's curse words came out of his mouth, his expression suddenly froze. Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute dash. He slowly raised his head and looked at Kaylan in astonishment. The prefix hum seems to be such a character in alpha script. This is definitely not a coincidence. Kaylan, the prefix hum is in alpha script. What means? I can't be sure. Kaylan shook his head, because I can't be sure whether the 9 stone chambers are composed of alpha civilization's writing, so I can't understand its meaning. This is the special thing about alpha's writing. If it's not put in a special context, it's just a bunch of meaningless ghost symbols. This is why I can't teach you this language. Then such a single character has no meaning? Hound asked reluctantly. Yes, but there are thousands of meanings. Moreover, this is not a single character, but a detachable phrase composed of 3 characters. What the hell? In addition to the special arrangement of the stone chamber, I also discovered a problem. Kaylan continued. What is the problem? 6 people are located in a stone chamber with only 1 stone door on the outside, and 3 people are located in a stone chamber connected to each other in the middle. And these 3 people happen to be the 3 who are trapped in the dream the most, Cao Feng, Yvonne, and Asano Akira. I don't know, is this a coincidence? P.S. I have received a lot of comments recently, complaining about why the ruins of Alpha civilization are full of traps and traps. Some people even said this: do the natives of Alpha planet have to run into traps every day when they go to work? But I would like to ask these readers to pay attention to one thing, that is, the ruins that the protagonists have visited now are either A level or S level. These ruins all contain high-value trophies, which are correspondingly compared to those in our real world. Isn't it normal for places like Treasury, Research Institute, Secret Factory, or Military Restricted Area to have many agencies? Moreover, after the disappearance of the Alpha civilization, based on their technological level, shouldn't it be a basic operation to allow these ruins to seal themselves and automatically produce various traps and obstacles to prevent prying eyes? As for the residential areas for ordinary people in the Alpha civilization, there are of course them, but I didn't write about them. Those ruins of C, D, or even lower levels are not very dangerous, but there are too few valuable things, so as elite hunters, the protagonist group no longer bothers to explore such ruins, with one exception, Leviathan's remains. Before they realized that Leviathan was not dead and did not find those sea anemone-headed monsters, the ruins of this ruins the grade is C. There are basically no dangerous factors except for the complicated terrain. There is also S-011 suspended in Duval. This ruins can be regarded as a standard Alpha civilization living area, and there are not so many traps. However, the dangerous reason is that the anti-gravity device in the core of the city malfunctions, and it becomes a narrow escape. Dangerous place. Although some readers advised me not to argue with certain people, it's really annoying to have too many comments like this. I can't even delete them, and I can't keep an eye on the comment area all the time, so I can only unify them here. Explain this, and people who see it should stop complaining about this in the future.